Okay, Misty, this is Fabiola, and I'm going to try to talk to you just a little bit more about your GigaHoop. So I know that you know that basically what you have right here, because I've said this before, and I think you've also gathered that information, is that the GigaHoop is not just a great big hoop. It basically is two B hoop areas that have been combined into one big hoop. All right, so what I've got on my screen is my MBX version 5 program open, and I know that you are running an earlier version of MBX, so what you see on the screen on your software is not going to be exactly like all the icons and everything that I have in my software. But the way that the setup is going to work is going to be the same. You're going to select your hoop, your machine, and then once your machine has been selected, you're going to have a choice of 4 hoops that Janome has created for your machine. Hoop D is the Giga Hoop, and this is the maximum design area that it has, and it is based on the fact that these are B hoop sizes, 2 of them side by side. Hoop number 1, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and I'm going to hide my designs. Hide the selected design. So all we are looking at right now is the hoop areas. So hoop number 1 is the red side, and this is your 5x7 hoop, also known as your B hoop. Hooping number 2 is on the blue side, and that is hooping number 2. When you bring in your designs have to fit with either completely within side number 1 or completely within side number 2. So that means that when you bring in a design, let's say that we're working with side number 2, it can fill up this entire design area, but it cannot overlap if there is an object. Let's say it's a tree branch or a little while ago you saw some of the birds that I had up on the screen. No part of those objects can overlap across, if it's mainly contained in the B hoop, it cannot overlap outside of this area. Same thing goes for the red hoop. If it's going to stitch out in hooping number 1, it has to be completely contained within this area. Cannot overlap out of this area into the blue area. All right, so that's one thing to remember about it. I'm going to unhide all and bring in my designs and show you what I've got here on the screen. So I have 2 different bird designs. This bird design here, I'm going to turn off my true view so you can see him better. He is entirely contained within the blue hoop, okay? And bird number 1 is entirely contained in the red hooping. All right, but if I were to try to, let's just say I wanted this design to stitch out centered in this whole entire design area. If I did, I'm going to do a Control A to select everything. And I'm going to then come over here and say I wanted it to auto center to the work area. All right, so what that did is it moved what used to be all in hoop number 2 or the blue hoop, it moved it partly over into this red zone. See some of these lines here, and the bird beak are no longer contained in the blue hoop. They have now overlapped. Your machine's not going to be able to read that. All right, it was fine if I kept all of this one over in the blue side and I kept all this one over on the red side. The machine would have read that just fine. Okay, so the other thing that I want you to remember about your hoop, not only is it going to stitch out into 2 different hoopings, when you send this design over to your machine, part 1 is going to stitch right side up. It's going to look right side up when you open this design up in your embroidery machine, but part number 2 is actually going to come in upside down. And the reason why, this is not actually a really good depiction of what your Giga Hoop looks like. So I've opened up a picture of a Giga Hoop. I don't have one myself, but I was able to find this on the internet. And I'm hoping that the quality of this picture is adequate to try to explain what happens next. We've been talking about how you are stitching out your big Giga Hoop design in 2 different hoopings. And in hooping number 1, which is showing right here on the screen, hopefully that shows good enough, this is the connecting point at which you would have attached your hoop onto your machine. We know that this is the front of the hoop at this point in time because this is the front of the hoop where your screw is at that tightens up your inner hoop to your outer hoop. So hooping number 1 is going to stitch out right here in your hoop. And this is the connecting point that you are connecting your hoop onto the machine. When part number 1 has completed, you're going to actually remove this connector from this part of your hoop, and you're going to insert it into this part down here. At that point in time, you are then going to rotate your hoop around, and you're going to connect this, which now has this connecting point onto it. You're going to connect that onto your machine so that you can hoop or you can stitch out part number 2, which is going to be this blue part of the hoop. All right, it would have been this part of the hoop, but what you are actually going to see on the machine is part B. Part number 2 is actually going to look upside down on the machine. And the reason why it looks upside down, you had noticed that when you had sent your designs to the machine, Misty, is because you have actually rotated this hoop around. And so that's why it looks like it's upside down. And that is entirely correct. So then the next time that you are going to use your hoop, just make sure that you disconnect the black connecting point and put it back where it belongs so that you don't get confused. And make sure also that your grid is in the hoop in the right direction that it needs to go in, so that also will help you. So, okay, so then hopefully that helps to clarify. What are the things you need to remember? Every object needs to be completely contained within either hoop number 1 or hoop number 2. No overlapping. If you have things that are overlapping, your machine is not going to read them. And the other thing is that you are going to be turning that hoop upside down once you have stitched out part number 1. Now, if you are a really good digitizer and you want to get brave, you are going to be able to break apart objects or digitize them in such a way that these overlaps can be dealt with. But again, that's going to take a little bit of experimenting and a little bit of experience, because what happens as your design starts to stitch out is that you are going to get all of that pull compensation, which is also known as push-pull, and your fabric kind of contorts just a little bit because of the movement of the machine and also because of the pulling of the thread against the fabric. And so sometimes when you want to get a good join, when you are using a multi-position hoop, somewhere along in this area here, if these lines had to actually be broken apart, you might not get good joins. But, if you have some designs that you're working with, just open them up in your GigaHoop, in your software program, and take a really good look at them and decide where you are going to be able to break some of those parts apart so that you can get them to stitch either in side 1 or side 2. All right, Misty, I hope that helps you. And once again, just continue to ask questions if it doesn't make sense, and hopefully, with the input of all of us here on the group, we're going to be able to help you get through this. The GigaHoop is a great hoop, but it's not all obvious how it does work. And the other thing about it is that, it is not just one giant square. It has to be worked with in 2 hoopings. So look around on the internet also and see what other people have to share about how they've made it work for them. Good luck. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.